This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network. And welcome everybody to a comics edition of the Animanicast.
Eyes. Plus tack. Minus T. Ack. Isaac. Lizard. Dragon. Newt. It's a newt. Isaac Newt. That's its son. I've got it. Isaac Newt's weight.
No.
Isaac Newt's heavy.
No.
Isaac Newt trapezoid.
No. Look, you can all try. I don't care. Whoever says the correct answer wins, all right?
Isaac Newt's anvil.
Isaac Newt Gray thing? Isaac Newt Tory spelling?
No. Newton. Isaac Newton. It's Isaac Newton.
Good answer.
And welcome once again to the Animanicast. We're the only podcast out there that's dedicated to the animated television series Animaniacs. And usually, every episode we talk about, every episode of Animaniacs, we talk about the cultural references, the gags, our favorite moments, what we thought about it when we were kids, etc., etc. But today we have a special episode because we're going to be talking about another Animaniacs comic book. I am Joey, and joining me once again is my brother, Nathan.
What comes up must come and get it, or something like that.
Yes, indeed. Today we are talking about issue number 8 of Animaniacs, which was originally published all the way back in December of 1995. Well, this is an interesting comic. What did you think about it, Nathan? In a few words.
It's there's gravity is important throughout the episode, I think. I don't know.
Well,
it plays a role in it. I think you could say there's at least one part they talk about gravity in each of the segments. So there you go.
Well, yeah, gravity is definitely, in cartoons, there's a lot of falling. So therefore you could say gravity is involved in a lot of cartoons.
Exactly.
So there you are.
There you go. I can point out where gravity was in each segment. So that'll be my job.
Good. Excellent. Every panel will have gravity right there.
There's some gravity. Look out.
Well, as I said, we're going to be talking about issue number 8 today, and if you would like to read along with us or just see what the heck we're talking about when it comes to issue number 8 of Animaniacs, you have a couple options. Number one, you could try going to your local comic shop, or you could go online to a comic shop. I went to mycomicshop.com and bought a bunch of issues of Animaniacs on there. That was pretty cool because they actually list off for you if it's in mint condition or not. And of course, for me, I'm like, well, I'm going to be reading it. I don't care what, as long as the pages are all there, that's good for me. So I got them for like, $2-3 usually per comic. So it's they're pretty reasonably priced over at mycomicshop.com. But if you want to see them faster, like a preview, you could do a little searching online, a little bit of Googling, and most likely you'll be able to find some scans of these issues because they're all out of print and there is no, as far as I know, collection of these comic books. So feel free to do a little bit of Googling and either buy it or look for some previews of it with some scans online. Well, let's go ahead and get into our discussion of issue number 8. And Nathan, tell us, first of all, before we get into our little segments here, or our little parts of the comic, segments of the comic, whatever. What do we have on the cover of this week's?
Oh boy! So this one, I hope you're a fan of apples because they've got them on this cover. There's an apple tree. It looks like, and Yakko is standing by a big pile of apples, pointing at it and saying, I don't think this guy understands the gravity of the situation. So here's an instance where gravity is in the episode. So
good job.
Just so you know. And it's like, who is this old guy? I don't know. He has this white hair and, whatever. An apple has fallen on his head, you can see, and it's bounced off. And Wacko is hanging from the tree, swinging on a tire swing with Dot just below him. And he's saying, funny, this doesn't taste like a fig Newton. That's a clue of who this guy is. And then Dot just says, I just love a man in curls, referring to the curls on the wig that this guy is wearing. I don't know who this guy is, hit with an apple underneath an apple tree.
It's Isaac Newton!
Also, in the tree, we have Pesto and Squid, I think, are in there, and some worm.
And Bobby's in there. Bobby's in there.
Oh, is he?
Hidden. Yeah, he's kind of hidden.
I see him, yeah. He's there.
Kind of a Where's Waldo.
And so I'm guessing they'll be in this episode, right?
Nope.
In this comic. Yeah, it's like, why?
I'm looking forward to an issue of the comic where they actually do take on the good feathers, like some of the lesser known characters, because
it's always just the Warners or Pinky and the Brain, right?
Yeah.
We haven't
well,
had
in your
anything
first
else.
10 issues, I guess you kind of had to stay to the classics, I suppose, in the first ones, just to get as many issues sold as possible, but they keep teasing us with good feathers and stuff on these issue covers, but then they're never there. Oh well. Well, let's go ahead and get into our discussion here of the first part, and it's called Dusputin with Newton. And Dusputin with Newton was written by... we don't know. Because in the comic book it doesn't say. It doesn't say who wrote it. It doesn't say who the letterer was. It doesn't say who did any of this stuff. So...
we have the editor-in-chief of the comic itself.
Yeah, like of DC Comics at the time, perhaps.
I guess
know.
that's what it is.
Jeanette Kahn and... was the president, editor-in-chief, Paul Levitz, executive vice president and publisher.
No one wants to take credit for this comic. So
No one wants to say, I wrote this, which that's a good sign for this issue, isn't it? Anyway, Nathan, tell us what happens here in Dusputin with Newton.
All right, well, Sir Isaac Newton is underneath an apple tree, and guess what? That's who's on the cover, everyone. Spoilers or something.
What?
So, yeah, you never saw it coming.
Never thought.
And he's trying to figure out a formula for gravity. So he knows that gravity exists, I guess. It's kind of weird. And he's sitting there, and then all the apples just start falling on his head, and it turns out the Warners are all shaking the tree because they're all hungry, they're all miserable and poor, and they just want to eat some food. But Newton's like, these are my apples. So the Warners try to take him away, and he grabs them and takes them back, and then he goes home and refuses. Takes all the apple with him home, and he's at home and he's trying to write the formula for the gravity, and he's like, what goes up must, and he's like, and then he hears a knock at the door, and it's the apple inspectors, and he's like, I've never heard of apple inspectors, and these apple inspectors, they don't look quite right. They look like they're wearing these glasses, and they have these like what look like fake noses and mustaches.
They're wearing Groucho Marx noses, basically.
Exactly. And they're saying like, these apples, I don't know, they don't look quite right. We're going to have to take them with us. And then he's like, hey, wait a second. Those were the Warners, basically. And he comes in, and they're playing with something, maybe caramel, or I thought it was applesauce, but I guess it's probably like to make caramel apples.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think they're making caramel or caramel apples because they're dunking them in this giant wooden barrel. And but yeah, it doesn't look appetizing no matter what, because I just don't know it really looks gross. It looks like they're just dunking it in almost mud or something like that, and it's just all over the carpet. And they're just
and
they're not
on the floor,
and they're not on sticks or anything like that. They're just
they're
just
like sticking their hands in there and
just shoving it in their mouths. It's a very weird. I don't know what the Warners are doing with these apples, but it looks gross.
Yeah, I don't know. So he storms into this other room where the Warners are, and he's like, I'm gonna take this apple back, and he takes a bite, and he hurts himself because I guess he has a cavity. So instead of gravity, it's a cavity. That's funny. Working on the law of cavity is what he says. So they start acting like they're dentists, and they're looking at his teeth and like, open your mouth wide, wider, widest, and then they pour all the caramel into his mouth.
Which is not the best thing to do if you have a cavity, is to
exactly. That's going to just make
sugar.
It worse.
Oh, well.
Ugh. And then they walk off with the apples, but then Sir Isaac Newton reaches through the window and pulls him back inside, so then he has the apples again. So he's inside, he's trying to write the law of gravity, and Yakko's talking over his shoulder, and so he messes it up. He's, instead of writing what goes up must come down, he writes what goes up must come and get it. So it's, I don't know. And then
or
they
must
also
go sideways, or must go, he's basically saying everything but down.
Yeah, exactly. And then when he says come and get it, they all start ringing a dinner bell, and then they do a whole like hoedown kind of thing, and they're dancing, and Sir Isaac Newton's getting spun all around, and he's all dizzy, and he's like, oh, I must make mathematical patterns of this dance that they've done. You know, it's kind of silly because he's like so smart, but not really. And then he realizes, hey, wait, my apples, because they took the apples while he was busy dizzy and dancing. So he runs out, and then there's apples all over the floor. He's tripping, he's falling, he's dancing, and then he falls down. And he's like, way to get down is what, you know, the Warners would say, because it looks like he's dancing. He's like, goes down, what goes up must come down. And yeah, they're getting down at the end because they're dancing, and then Wacko says something weird that I don't understand. He says, thank goodness that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, which is true. And then the 70s are dead, which I don't know. That's the part I didn't understand.
When Isaac Newton is tripping on these apples...
that sounds bad. It sounds like he's on drugs.
Yes, this is weird apples, man.
Man, he's
tripping on apples. Oh, man, I tripped on some apples the other day. No, he's like slipping on apples. And he before he does, he's kind of wobbling around the place, and Dot says he looks like John Travolta. She says he's Travolta-rific. And they're showing groovy moves. So for whatever reason, after he dresses up like John Travolta, I guess, in a disco outfit. And so, yeah, Wacko says, thank goodness, blah, 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 equal opposite reaction, and then the 70s are dead. It's supposed to be a joke? I didn't think it was funny. It was just okay.
Yeah,
Silence.
I don't know. It was, yeah. So overall... there's a lot of math that doesn't go through, and the whole what goes up must come down thing, that's not an Isaac Newton thing, that's a nothing thing.
Okay, so tell us, Nathan, you're a mathematics minor. You have an engineering degree.
Yeah.
What did you think about this?
What goes up
stuff?
Must keep going up unless another force acts on that object going up, hence gravity. So there you go, what goes up. So an object in motion will remain in motion unless another force acts on it. Same with an object at rest. You know, it's just going to stay there unless something acts on it. That's the first law of motion from Sir Isaac Newton's law of motion. And then he has the second law of motion, of course, which is a force equals the mass times acceleration. And the third law is basically if you push on an object, it'll push back with the same force kind of thing. So... the whole equal and opposite reaction. So
whenever you saw Isaac Newton in this, you were not happy with the mathematical...
He says things
stuff
that don't make any sense. Let's see if I can find one. He's like talking about going home, and he's saying, now by going horticulturally in direct opposition to the hypotenuse of the obtuse angle, I shall enter my abode. And it's like, okay, that sounds smart. Those are all words, but like
it's just nonsense.
Well, like an obtuse angle doesn't have it says to the hypotenuse of the obtuse angle, and it's like, okay, there's just one hypotenuse of a triangle. So I don't know what he's talking about.
I think I know what happened here. At the beginning, he got hit with a lot of apples, and he has a huge bump on his head, and he might have a concussion of some sort.
Because he says the apples dropped on him with the velocity of the square root of pi, and I'm like, what units are you using, Newton?
I think we're coming to the conclusion of what the heck was going on and why Sir Isaac Newton was having so much trouble in this cartoon in the first place. And he has a concussion, and it happened right at the beginning when the Warners shook all the apples on top of him. He had a huge bump on his head, and then for the rest of the comic, he's going, "What comes up must go." And he just doesn't know.
Yeah, because maybe he was going to say, "What goeth up must stay going up," unless something. Maybe because that would be a better equation than "what goes up must come down," because that's not true.
I mean, it was cute. I mean, I do like some things about this first comic. I thought the facial expressions of Sir Isaac Newton were really cool, and his really good teeth and stuff. And the Warners had some really good expressions from time to time in here, really expressive. So I thought that looked cool. I thought some of the over-the-top flowery language that Isaac Newton was doing was pretty cool.
Yeah, I would appreciate if they actually said things that made sense too. Like Futurama will do that, where they say something smart and it actually is like a smart thing. I feel like this is more like if you're a fan of Big Bang Theory, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's funny," because that's what Big Bang Theory does a lot. They'll just say things that don't actually make sense, but that it just for the sake of sounding smart, kind of thing. I don't know. I don't like the show.
Never seen it, and never really will ever see it now. Sorry, Big Bang Theory people. But anyway, there's some other stuff that popped up, though, throughout this first issue. Of course, we have some Levi's commercials stuff that we've seen before. We also have a Dungeons and Dragons advertisement that was kind of cool. This kind of gargoyle charging at you. Sam Witwer and his brother, Sam Witwer, the voice of Darth Maul, he wrote a whole Dungeons and Dragons book with his brother, I believe.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, if you're into the history of Dungeons and Dragons, that's what it's all about. I don't know, something for a model car with a Batman comic book. Probably the thing that really stood out for me, though, was the last two things in here. There was an advertisement for the movie Mallrats, which that's a fun movie, and an advertisement for the Super Nintendo version of Spawn, the video game, which I have never played, but graphics on it look reasonably good. But I have no idea if it's a good game, so there you go. Look online, folks, if that's good or not. I don't know. But I always love looking at the advertisements in here, because that, if anything, is just, it makes you feel a little younger, because you're like, I remember that.
It makes me feel older, because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's been so long.
Yeah. Well, either way.
Stay tuned for these words from our lovely sponsor. Way to kiss up, Dot.
According to legend, General Grievous was known to boast of the number of lightsabers he had acquired from the bodies of his slain Jedi enemies. Grievous was the first in a long tradition of collectors of rare items. A tradition that continues to this day on the Retro Zap podcast known as the Dork Lair.
Dork Lair. Hey, Robert, why should people listen to another retro gaming podcast?
You mean our cast, David? We do have to keep this short, you know.
Yes, well, I guess we should start with the fact we celebrate old-school video games.
And we have awesome guests and game giveaways. Don't forget that.
Plus our game show and your favorite segment, Random Select.
Don't remind me. Are we done yet?
Listen to our cast, another retro gaming podcast, part of RetroZap.com.
Finally, back to my beer.
Hey, God, this is Pinky, and you're listening to Animanicast. You know why? Because you're going to take over the world.
Narf. Let's go ahead and look at the next segment. It's Pinky in the Brain, and this is something that we've seen before. This is Pinky in the Brain in Jockey for Position. And Jockey for Position was written by Peter Hastings. The adapter was Dana Curtin. Penciler was George Wildman. Inker was Scott McRae. Letterer Bob Panaha. Colorist Tom Ziuko. this sounds familiar, and of course it is, because it's all from episode 27 of Animaniacs, which also had I Got Your Can, and what was the other thing it had in it?
It also had You Risk Your Life, which is a great segment. That's probably the best one of that episode.
Yeah. Well, so this right here, so it's when the brain decides to win a bunch of money by becoming a jockey, because he realizes that, I think the lighter you are, the more likely you're going to win the race. They go to the stables, and Pinky falls in love with Farfignugan, or Farfignewton, which, hey, go figure that we just had Sir Isaac Newton, and Wacko on the cover was talking about Fig Newtons, and here's Farfignewton, so perhaps that was...
Yeah. Maybe it was intentional. And then at the very beginning, they're talking about turning off gravity as their plan to take over the world.
That's their plan to take over the world, is they're going to put a giant magnet, right? They need to buy a giant magnet so they can...
Doesn't
it
make
to
any
put
sense.
it down in the... Yeah, I don't know. But they're going to tie
we
themselves...
talked about it on the last podcast. But
I'm not going to follow. I'm not going to waste that much time.
I just want to say... Gravity has nothing to do with the Earth spinning. They think that for some reason this genius mouse apparently is going to stop the rotation of the Earth and everyone's going to go flying off. Doesn't work like that. Genius.
Well, the actual plot. They race and they don't win and yada yada yada. I'm not going to get into the jockey for position thing because it's just an adaptation, and quite frankly, it's not as good as the actual cartoon. And the biggest difference, though, is Farfignewton is colored wrong. She is brown instead of white. The joke was always that Farfignewton just looked like a giant horse, pinky horse. And that is not the case in this comic. She's a brown horse with red hair, still has the pinky teeth, but is totally brown, and it doesn't work. I mean, there's lots of hearts everywhere, and when they're racing, and to show that he's in love with her, and yada yada yada. But I don't know, Nathan. I kind of skipped through this one, to be completely honest, because I've already seen the cartoon. What did you think about this adaptation?
I think I only liked one panel, which was like one of the last one where you get to see where Pinky's at and Farfignewton and the finish line, and just to show you how far back Farfignewton is and where Pinky is in relationship to everyone else. Just an overhead of the racetrack. I think that's the only one. I was like, okay, that kind of worked at a comic, I guess, because I had to squint to see where everyone was at. But yeah, it's definitely nowhere near as good as the cartoon, and it wasn't even my favorite cartoon to begin with.
Yeah, it's true. It wasn't the best Pinky the Brain. It was just kind of, I don't know. I will say this. It shows that just because it's not that great as a comic doesn't mean it's going to be a bad cartoon.
Yeah.
It definitely improved. I mean, whenever we look at these comics, it's always fun to think, like, would this be a good actual cartoon on TV? And some of them do, some of them don't. If I had just seen this, I don't know if I would have thought, yeah, translate this into an actual cartoon.
Yeah.
There's so much movement. I think it, like with the horse race, it just needs to be a cartoon. Like I wasn't a big fan of the drawings in this middle comic.
Yeah, it gets confusing of where everything's at too, because it's all
the panels are just. I think the less said about it, the better. It's not that good. It's not that good. And if you want to see it, hey, go to episode 27 of Animaniacs, and then you can listen to our discussion of episode 27 of Animaniacs. Yeah, let's move on.
Okay.
Nathan, do you have anything else to say about this one?
Well, no, I don't actually have anything to say.
Okay. The next comic is called Clowns for a Day. Clowns for a Day was written by Amy Weingartner, whatever. Penciler was George Wildman, inker Scott McCrae, letterer Bob Panaha, colorist Tom Ziyuku. Nathan, can you tell us what happens here in Clowns for a Day?
The Warners are at the circus for some reason. And Wacko
they want to
has
have
all
fun.
This. Well, I'm concerned that why Wacko's there, I guess, because he doesn't like clowns, and there are clearly clowns all around. Doesn't seem to care, though.
Yeah, and this is another reason why the comics are not canon, because Wacko certainly embraces clowns in this
doesn't show
story.
any fear of clowns in here.
None at all.
So,
He's just no clownophobia.
This may be before he got his clownophobia.
Or maybe
sometime
he was
around.
cured.
Because there was, I guess, there was that whole blimp where he's in a blimp of a giant clown.
That's true.
And so we figured that was probably before Clowning Out. So this one might also be before that.
Something happened in the balloon. That's right. We talked about it. Something horrible happened in that balloon that they blow out of the water tower, and then that gave him the fear of clowns.
Yep,
Anyway.
let's see. So anyways, they're watching the circus, and I think Wacko's like, oh, man, I could be a clown. But I'm trying to think like what this joke was. It doesn't make any sense. But Dot's like, oh, but you're too coordinated, and then a clown comes and falls on him because the clown's uncoordinated. So I don't get what that was about. But anyways, then Wacko ends up spilling all the food and drink all over Dot. Dot gets angry at the clown for knocking it all onto him, and then the clown's like sad because it's doing such a bad job, and then they follow the clown backstage and like try to comfort him, saying, hey, it's okay. And he's like, no, if I mess up one more time, I'm gonna have to clean up after Big Bertha, which is an elephant.
Big Betsy.
Big Betsy, that's what it was.
It's actually that's probably the only panel I kind of like in this cartoon. Is he says, "Today's my last chance. If I screw up, Gustav, I think it's the ringmaster, I guess. Gustav will have me sweeping up after Big Betsy." And Yakko and Wacko are looking up in the sky, and there's a woman swinging, and the artist, I don't know if it's just because he drew her and she's in the background, but she's definitely big on top, I'll say that. But she
Big Busty, more like
Big
it.
Busty, yeah. Hello. But they say, hello, nurse. No, Big Betsy, the elephant, who's also in the frame to the side. So, anyway.
Yeah, so he's talking about all the terrible thing, so he drove a clown car and he crashed it, and the tallest clown is now the shortest clown, so I think that means that guy's dead. And then he got shot out of a cannon and knocked some people out of the trapeze, and there was no net, so I guess they also died. And then he also crashed into a bunch of explosions and blew up, and I guess he's dead? I don't know. So anyways, the Warners are like, we'll help. And Dot puts on a clown outfit, which I thought that was Wacko. I don't know if you thought that at all, but I got so confused.
I got very confused between Dot and Wacko whenever they put this clown costume on.
Yeah.
They're the same size. They put on the same wig. It would have helped if so they're basically like, we'll fill in for you, right? We'll do your job for you so you don't get in trouble. And so they take over for this clown that's gonna get fired or have to clean up after the elephant, and they end up creating more of a problem.
Yeah, exactly. So Dot comes out. It's like, oh, I'm going to be serving pies, and she starts like just throwing pies at everyone in the audience, and it goes all over the place. And the ringmaster gets mad, and then she's also covered in pies. And then Wacko decides to go out and does some magic out of his bag, and then a bunch of elephants come out. And then the ringmaster gets mad at that, and then Yakko comes out and he's like, oh, I'll tame some lions, and all the lions just start attacking the ringmaster, except like licking him, so not eating him, so that's good. But I don't know, what were you going to say?
It's just, I don't know. This comic is so bad. It's just so bad. It's not interesting. It's not funny. Nothing is going on in this comic that's funny. Let's just skip to the end because at the end.
Well, I think this is then finally the clown's like, I just got to do this myself. So then he comes out, and I don't know if he has to clean up after this tiger or what, but then the tiger jumps out and is about to attack the ringmaster, and the clown says heal, and the tiger's now tame, and now he's going to be a rodeo clown, is how it ends. So.
Yeah, because he is able to lasso the tiger before it kills his boss.
Yeah.
Again, there's no rhyme or reason for this. It's just because it happens, and he becomes a rodeo clown, and at the end he's swinging his lasso saying, they're saying, Gustav, watch out for the cow pies. And it's just done. It's over. Okay. Any good parts of this, Nathan? Any good lines? Anything for this last clown one?
Well, no.
It's just sloppy. Everything is sloppily drawn. The plot is boring. It's confusing to see who's the clown at this point and that point. I mean, why did they have to dress up exactly? I guess they had to maybe look like him so that they could pass off it as him.
Yeah.
But still, they could have just said, I don't know, they could have kept the wig the same, but the costume different, so at least I would have known, okay, that's Dot right now, and that's...
just
scale.
like looking through the clue they have at the beginning is I'm cute and funny, but like I didn't read that, I mean they're all cute, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's just dumb. And the scale, I know I shouldn't be too judgmental on this, but the scale on a lot of the characters, especially when they go up into the stands, it's like off, like they're too big when they're supposed to be smaller, and they're too small when they're supposed to be bigger. And I'm sorry, but I just did not like the anything about this last issue. Part.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's go ahead and get to our Water Tower rating. What do you think, Nathan? Out of 5 water towers, how many water towers would you give this comic?
I'll go for 2 water towers, I think. Yeah, I'll say 2.
All right, why do you think 2?
It's just not very good, but I mean, like, it has Pinky in the Brain. It's a Pinky in the Brain that would be good, okay, I guess, if it wasn't one that I've seen before. And Sir Isaac Newton, I would like that if it was better. And the clowning one, I could just stop reading the comic by that point, I guess.
I had to read it. I guess one of the reasons I hate that last part so much is that I had to read it 3 times to even understand what the heck was going on in this stupid comic when there really wasn't anything going on to begin with.
Right.
So...
it's like way too text heavy for not enough thing. Like you can't just like flip through it.
And the colors are all like the same 5 colors, like everywhere. So it's just like
exciting.
everything blends together. Some panels are way too small, and it's just it hurt. Well, I'm going to give this comic 2 as well. It has a nice cover, and it has a reasonably good first segment. I think it could be adapted for the cartoon, and probably put in some better jokes, because it does go to the standard, routine. The Warners visit a historic character, and they torment him for whatever reason. And in this case, they just want to get apples, and they keep grabbing the apples back and forth. But it's, I don't know. It just, like you said, Nathan, the mathematical language doesn't quite make sense at all. It's there, but it doesn't make any sense. And the other 2 segments, Pinky in the Brain, yeah, I've already seen it, and I've seen it better. And the clown thing, I don't want to ever see it again. So I'll give it 2, but that's really generous. I mean,
I know. I was like, should I go lower? But like, whatever, 2, whatever.
Yeah, 2. It's like whatever. it's still like I figure like I could give this to like a kid and go, here, you want to read this comic? Because it really did also feel, even though like some of the language was like a little more advanced, I suppose, like with Sir Isaac Newton, it really felt like the age level for this is low. Like I felt like I need to be 7 years old to really be even moderately appreciating this comic. And good Animaniacs for me is when it starts hitting, you're like the 12 or 13-year-old range. For some reason. I know it's a weird thing to say, but really, I mean, Animaniacs needs to hit that like adolescent level, not the juvenile level. So this is just too simple for me, plot wise, drawings and everything, just meh.
I also wanted to mention that there was 2 more ads at the very end of the comic that we didn't mention.
Well, there's Mad TV.
Oh, I didn't even see that one.
Yeah, Mad TV was in here. But what was the comic? Nerf?
Nerf. There's a contest, and you could win free Nerf because it was their 25th anniversary, apparently. So, and then there was a Batman game, and I remember those it's one of those like you buy a whole console basically, and it just has one little game on it. Do you remember those?
Oh, you're talking about the Batman game at the very end?
Yeah, the very last.
These are the Tiger Electronics games.
Yeah.
Where it just shows you had we had this game, I think.
I think so.
We had either this one. This is the Batman Forever Tiger Electronics handheld game. And I know we had Batman Returns. And I just remember lots of trips to Disneyland playing the Tiger Electronics games. And as simple as they were, I loved those things. I mean, they're
actually fun.
Before Game Boy. And speaking of Game Boy, we also skipped one other advertisement here. There was a Game Boy advertisement.
Oh yeah, Street Fighter 2. And they talk about I think this was before Game Boy Color, but it was with Super Game Boy. So they were kind of advertising the Super Game Boy and being able to plug your Game Boy game into that. So this is that's like the centerfold, right? This
the centerfold. This
old lady
with 50s hair pointing at it. You know how these advertisements are. We have the adult going, yeah, if you're going to fight, do it outside. Even your mom knows Street Fighter 2 is on Game Boy. Why would a mom say if you're going to fight, do it outside? I don't know.
I don't care if you fight, just don't break my stuff.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get to some contact information. Nathan, where can people get in contact with you online?
Well, I believe I'm still on Twitter. Django
last
FT,
time
that's
I
me.
checked.
Yeah, I'm still there. Okay, cool.
They have not yet deleted his account.
Oh, but watch out.
You never know. The things Nathan tweets.
Yeah.
Well, as for the Animanicast, you can get us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and you can also look at all of our other stuff over at animanicast.com. Join our conversation over at Discord by going to discord.animanicast.com. You can talk to me, Nathan, Kelly over there. By the way, Kelly, she couldn't be here today. She will be back next week. But you can see her on Twitter, Yoda Princess, YODAPRNCSS. I think that's the first time I ever plugged Kelly's Twitter by myself. It's weird. Anyway, we're a proud member of the RetroZap.com podcast community. You can check out RetroZap.com for tons of other podcasts to listen to, all out there to help scratch your pop culture itches. Whether that is Star Wars, movies, video games, whatever, it's all over at RetroZap. It's a fantastic, positive community of podcasters, and we can't say enough positive things about them because they're great. Well, that'll do it for today's episode. So, for Nathan, this is Joey saying, good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
This podcast is not endorsed by Warner Brothers or Amblin Entertainment and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Animaniacs, the Warner Brothers logo, all names, pictures, and sounds of the Animaniacs characters or any other Animaniacs-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Warner Brothers, Amblin Entertainment, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of the Animanicast unless otherwise indicated.
It's Isaac Newton!